thinking about how to make each meeting as productive as possible, once you know the work plan for school governance, you will have a clear indication as to what the agenda for an individual meeting should be. I think the best agendas I see are suitably prioritised. There's a quotation I really like from Hilary Benn, who was the Environment Minister at the time, who said, "We all joined the party to change the world, not the minutes of the last meeting." That certainly resonates with me in terms of governance. And I think some of the traditional approaches where people start considering the minutes of the last meeting and matters arising before things like the school improvement plan or pupil progress or the financial matters under consideration, we don't need to be tied by such historical structures. And I've certainly seen good practice where things like the minutes of the last meeting are relegated very low down the agenda to allow an immediate focus on strategic matters, pupil progress and achievement, and financial matters at the top of the agenda. And I think that having your agenda structured in that way sends a very positive signal to people like Ofsted if they're coming in and looking at the evidence base that might be within governor minutes and governor agendas, that the governors are focusing on the key areas of governance as outlined in the governor's handbook. I think then there's some operational aspects to get the administration right that can support effective meetings. Firstly, any reports provided for the governors should be made available in advance. I think a week in advance is a good discipline to work to. But also the authors of the report should write the reports with the audience in mind. So very clearly signal why the report has been written and what the governors are expected to do with the report. I think the flip side of that is there's then a duty on governors to read the report. It can be very frustrating. I can reflect as an author of many reports for school governing bodies when someone turns up to the meeting opening the envelope that you've worked hard to get the papers out a week ago and clearly haven't read the papers. And so I think that effective governance there requires both parties to contribute. And hopefully the governors are coming along having read the papers and prepared to ask questions and to provide the support and challenge necessary. I think it's very important that there isn't duplication between the tiers of governance. I think the worst governance is where you go through things at a senior leadership team level, you then repeat it at a committee level, and for a third time at full governing body level. And I would hope in schemes of delegation within the governing body, it's very clear that the committees have delegated authority to get on and make decisions rather than refer everything back for duplication and possibly a reconsideration at a full governing body level. And I think similar things emerge with things like receiving reports of school governor visits or feedback from governor training. It should be on matters of significance requiring consideration by the full governing body, not to justify people's activity that they have done. Reports can be circulated outside of meetings for people to get the background information. It's certainly something that drives me to distraction frequently is the amount of time spent in governing body meetings, in some governing bodies, reviewing policies. And that's an area where significant time savings can be made because only 4 policies require annual review or approval by the full governing body, and I think someone calculated there are around potentially 70 policies that might be available there within an individual school. So using individuals to review policies, be it staff, governors or indeed outside agencies, you might require a health and safety expert to review your health and safety policy so that they've got up-to-date knowledge with current legislation and requirements and good practice on health and safety. And I think the final thing there is building in each meeting an element of self-review. I've seen good practice where a governing body might have a framework for a review of a meeting and ask a governor at the start of the meeting to volunteer for conducting that review. And during the meeting they'd be looking at things that are in that framework. So how well is the meeting chaired? Was the administration good before the meeting? Are the reports free from jargon and clear on the expectations required of governors? During the meeting, did everyone participate? Did the chair encourage other people to participate and try and cut down on individual people dominating the meeting? And I think the key aspect of that as well is at the end of the meeting to consider what impact the meeting has had, and that's very closely related to the Ofsted expectations on governance.